They may never say sorry. They may never stay awake at night replaying what they did to you. And the moment you truly accept that, everything starts to shift. Because there is one thing, and maybe only one thing, that ever makes a person like this feel the weight of what they threw away. It is not your tears. It is not your long explanations. It is not the perfect speech you kept building in your head. It is the silence they cannot manage. It is the calm they cannot reach into. If you have ever begged someone to see the hurt they caused, only to have them stare at you like you were the problem, then stay with me, because this changes the whole picture. What looks like love in the beginning may not be love at all. It may be a search, a hunt for attention, praise, devotion, emotional energy, even your pain, because all of it feeds their need to feel important. That early stage feels intense for a reason. You feel chosen, you feel seen, you feel pulled into something powerful. But what feels powerful is often just dependency dressed up like connection. And that is the trap. You were not being valued for who you are. You were being valued for what you gave. Once that flow becomes harder to get, once you set limits, ask questions, expect honesty, or simply become a full human being with needs, the warmth changes fast. Not because love faded, but because the deal stopped working for them. That is the part most people miss, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That is why betrayal from them often feels so cold. To you, it feels like a moral break, a deep wound, a violation of trust. To them, it may feel like a simple shift, a move, a replacement. In their inner story, nothing sacred was broken because the bond was never held in the same way you held it. What you called closeness, they may have experienced as access. What you called partnership, they may have treated like supply. And when the supply became less easy, less constant, or less exciting, they did not sit in guilt the way a healthy person would. They just moved to the next thing that could keep their image alive. That is why talking to their conscience so often goes nowhere. You are asking them to feel pain over hurting a bond they never truly carried as a bond. To you, it was real. To them, it was useful. And that difference is devastating. So many people keep trying anyway. They explain it one more time. They rewrite the message. They hope a new tone, a softer voice, a stronger example will finally make it land. But the problem is not your words. It was never your words. The problem is that guilt requires depth. It requires the ability to imagine another person's inner life, to let that pain matter, and to feel moved to repair what was damaged, even in private, even with no reward. That inner process is weak in this pattern, sometimes missing in the only way that counts. They may know you are upset. They may even say the right lines. But the feeling behind true remorse is not really there. Real guilt changes people. It interrupts sleep. It makes a person pause. It makes them replay what happened and ask themselves hard questions. It pushes them toward repair. But for someone built around protecting a fragile image, that kind of self-reflection feels dangerous. It feels like exposure. It feels like collapse. Instead of thinking, I did something harmful and I need to face it, they often feel something much more defensive. They feel threatened. They feel accused. They feel the urgent need to protect the version of themselves they cannot bear to lose. So what follows is predictable. Denial, blame, minimizing, story changing, sudden confusion, sudden anger, sudden victimhood. They may act wounded because being seen clearly feels like an attack to them. That does not mean your pain is not real. It means their system is built to avoid the exact process that could lead to honest accountability. This is why waiting for deep remorse from someone like this is not just painful, it is often impossible. The machinery needed for that level of reflection was never strong enough to carry it. Their inner alarm does not ring most loudly when they hurt someone. It rings when their self-image is challenged. That is the difference. And if you do not understand that, you can spend years standing in front of a locked door, knocking harder, speaking softer, trying everything, wondering why it never opens. Here is your answer. The door was never built to open that way. Watch this closely, because once you understand the structure, you stop blaming yourself for not finding the perfect key. When consequences finally show up, they usually do not experience them as lessons. They experience them as injuries. If a relationship breaks, if someone walks away, if their behavior is exposed, the first question is rarely, what did I do to create this? The first feeling is more like panic. My image is in danger. My control is slipping. I need to fix how this looks right now. The pain they feel can be very real, but it is not the same as sorrow for what they did to another person. It is the pain of losing influence, losing status, losing access to a reflection they depended on. That is why you can place clear evidence in front of them and still get rage instead of honesty. Being caught is not the same as being remorseful. Those two things may look similar from the outside, but inside they come from very different places. A person who wants to grow sees consequence as information. Hard information, yes, but useful. Something that teaches. Something that changes future behavior. A person trapped in this pattern sees consequence as a threat that must be neutralized. The story must be bent, the facts must be blurred, the blame must go somewhere else, and once that defensive wave passes, the pattern stays exactly where it was, untouched. That is why the same damage repeats in love, in friendship, at work, in families, everywhere. Nothing is being fully processed, nothing is becoming wisdom. The discomfort fades, the story is rewritten, and the deeper structure remains ready for its next chance. This is the loop. This is why so many people leave these relationships feeling stunned because they keep waiting for a turning point that never comes. From inside their own experience, the pattern rarely looks like destruction in real time. Every ending feels separate. Every lost relationship feels like a random event. Every friend who stops calling, every partner who leaves, every work connection that goes cold, each one gets filed away as a strange, unfair, isolated problem. Never a pattern, never a trail, never a mirror. Because seeing the pattern would require the kind of honest self-examination their whole system avoids. So instead of noticing what they are building around themselves, they usually see bad luck. Difficult people, jealous people, disloyal people, people who misunderstood them, people who failed them. The bridges they burned do not look burned by their own hand. They look like bridges that somehow collapsed for no clear reason. And the isolation that slowly closes in does not feel like a consequence of years spent taking more than they gave. It feels to them like the world becoming colder and more unfair. That is what makes the damage so dangerous. There is no one giant dramatic crash that forces insight all at once. It builds in silence. One person leaves, then another. One door closes, then another. One source dries up, then another. And because no one announces the total out loud, they can keep missing it for a long time. But eventually something changes. Fewer people answer. Fewer people trust. Fewer people are willing to step in one more time. And even then, instead of seeing their own part, they often conclude that everyone else is the problem. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, keep going, because this is where the picture starts to turn in your favor. When someone hurts you deeply, every part of you wants them to feel it. You want them to break open. You want them to finally understand what they did. You want the moment where they say it clearly, own it fully, and make sense of the chaos they left behind. That desire is human. It does not make you weak. It does not make you bitter. It makes you hurt. But chasing that understanding from them keeps you tied to the very force that injured you. Every new explanation, every last attempt to make them see, every silent wait for the apology that might finally bring peace, keeps your healing orbiting their response. And their response was never stable enough to build your recovery on. That is one of the hardest truths here. Closure feels like something they should give you, but often they cannot give it, at least not in a real way. The bond that keeps you waiting says, maybe if they finally admit it, I can rest. Maybe if they show regret, I can move on. Maybe if they hurt the way I hurt, the story will feel complete. But your peace does not actually require their confession. Your pain is real even if they never name it. Your experience is valid even if they twist every detail. Their downfall, if it comes, will not arrive because you delivered the perfect speech. It will come, if it comes, from the weight of their own repeated patterns over time. And it may happen far away from you, without witnesses, without drama, without the neat justice your heart wished for. That is painful, but it is also freeing. Because once you stop waiting for them to finish the story, you can begin to step out of it. And this is the turning point. The real, Until you do this was never about exposing them, humiliating them, or finding the perfect way to make them pay. It was about detachment. Quiet, deep, real detachment. Not cold performance, not staged silence to provoke a reaction, not a final dramatic exit speech, real release, the kind where your emotional energy stops feeding the cycle. Revenge still keeps you connected, anger still keeps them central, long messages still keep the line open. Even hatred can keep the bond alive because it means your focus is still turned toward them. Detachment asks for the opposite. It asks you to step so fully out of the emotional exchange that there is nothing left for them to pull from. No extra explanation, no more trying to be understood, no more reacting on cue, no more giving them the intense emotional charge they have learned to use. Their whole system depends on getting something from the people around them. Praise, panic, tears, conflict, hope, fear, loyalty, jealousy, anger, any of it can work. The specific emotion matters less than the fact that it proves they still have influence. But when you stop offering it, something strange happens. You become unreadable to them. You become a closed door instead of an open wound. And that unsettles them in a way your anger never could. They can handle rage because rage still points toward them. They can handle blame because blame still keeps them important. What they struggle to handle is irrelevance. The feeling that someone who once revolved around them has stopped circling at all. That is not punishment. That is freedom. And freedom is what they cannot control. One betrayal, even a painful one, usually does not end their world. Their pattern is flexible enough to absorb a loss, reframe the story, and move toward a new source with shocking speed. That is why so many people feel confused after the ending. You are shattered, and they seem strangely fine. But the real damage in their life does not come from one moment. It comes from accumulation. Slow, steady, almost invisible accumulation. Every person they drain and lose takes something with them. Every friend who finally steps back removes one more layer of support. Every partner who learns the pattern stops offering easy access. Every work relationship damaged by blame, charm, or exploitation closes another door. These losses may not connect in their mind, but in reality, they stack, year after year, quietly. And one day, the world that once felt wide and easy becomes smaller. The same charm does not work the same way anymore. Fewer people believe the stories. Fewer people rush to help. More people have heard enough. More people have seen enough. And here comes the sharp irony. Even as that circle shrinks, they often do not understand why. They do not see accumulated consequence. They see betrayal. They see unfairness. They see a cruel world. That is how thoroughly the self-protective lens can distort reality. So if you are waiting to watch them suddenly wake up and say, "Now I understand the damage I caused," do not build your future around that image. Their life may narrow, their options may fade, their relationships may dry up, but insight is not guaranteed. In fact, it is often the rarest part. Consequence can arrive without clarity. Loss can arrive without wisdom. Your healing, though, is different. It is real. It is yours. And it is the one part of this entire story you can actually shape. During the relationship, your pain often became proof of their power. Your tears meant they could still reach you. Your confusion meant they could still control the frame. Your hope that things might improve meant they had not lost you yet. Even your anger, even when it felt strong, still showed that your nervous system was arranged around them. They were still the center of the weather, but when you truly begin to heal, something much bigger than distance starts to happen. Your body stops bracing around their presence. Your mind stops measuring every detail through them. You stop checking for their reaction. You stop needing them to understand. You stop placing your worth on whether they ever say sorry. And in that quiet shift, you become unavailable as a mirror. That matters more than most people realize. Someone like this often depends on other people to reflect back an image they can tolerate: powerful, right, desirable, special, blameless. As long as you keep reacting, explaining, pursuing, hurting out loud in ways that still orbit them, the mirror is still active. But once your peace no longer depends on their response, the mirror changes or disappears. They lose access to one of the reflections that helped hold their identity together. This is not revenge. It is not a game. It is simply what happens when you stop participating in a pattern that needed your emotional labor to survive. Stay with that, because this is where your power returns, not loudly, but completely. The hardest truth to accept is also the one that sets you free. You were never the person who failed to explain it well enough. You were never one better conversation away from unlocking some hidden chamber of empathy. There was no perfect wording waiting to save this. No final message that would suddenly create remorse that was not available in the first place. That is not about your value. It is not about your intelligence, your patience, your love, or your effort. It speaks to a structure that was damaged long before you arrived. You did not build it, you did not cause it, and you cannot heal it by sacrificing yourself inside it. So let go of the fantasy that justice must look like their breakdown. Let go of the belief that peace must arrive through their apology. Let go of the hope that if you hurt visibly enough, honestly enough, beautifully enough, they will finally become the witness you needed. They may never become that witness, but you can. You can witness your own experience clearly. You can name what happened without their permission. You can stop handing them the authority to define your reality. And once that begins, a different kind of justice shows up. Quiet justice. The kind that lives in your restored sleep, your steadier body, your clearer mind, your refusal to keep chasing someone who only felt powerful when you were in pain. This is the part many people skip because it sounds too simple. But simple does not mean small. Simple can be life-changing. Your healing is not a side note, it is the main event. So if you have been waiting for some dramatic moment where they finally feel everything they made you feel, breathe. That moment may never come the way you imagined. Or if it does come, it may happen far from you, behind closed doors, shaped not by sudden truth but by years of repeated loss. Either way, it does not need to be your destination. Your life does not have to pause until their lesson arrives. Your heart does not have to stay at the crime scene, hoping the person who caused the damage will return as the healer. They usually do not. And the longer you wait there, the more of your own life gets delayed. The real shift begins when you stop trying to be the one who teaches them, when you stop trying to produce the perfect consequence, when you stop making your peace dependent on a mind that may never meet you in honesty. That is the release, not bitterness, not numbness, not pretending it did not matter. Real release. The kind that says it mattered deeply, and because it mattered, I will not keep offering myself to the same pattern. I will not keep standing where I am repeatedly wounded and calling it hope. I will not keep translating my pain into smaller words just to make it easier for someone else to avoid responsibility. I will step back. I will get quiet. I will heal in ways that do not require applause. And in doing that, I will no longer serve as the proof they once used to feel important. That change is invisible at first, but it is enormous. And once it begins, the whole story starts belonging to you again. The day you truly become quiet is not the day you lose. It is the day you stop feeding something that was feeding on you. It is the day your energy stops pouring into a bottomless space. It is the day your attention returns home, not because you stopped caring overnight, not because the hurt was fake, not because you got the apology you deserved, but because you finally saw that your peace was never meant to wait for someone else's permission. That is what they could not give you, and that is what you can still reclaim, not the past. Not the version of them you hoped was real, not a neat ending wrapped in justice, but your peace, your voice, your clarity, your future, fully yours again. And that is why their silence never healed you, their excuses never healed you, and their understanding was never the gate you had to pass through. The gate was always here. It was your willingness to stop standing in front of a locked door and start walking toward your own life instead. If this hits something deep in you, hold on to that feeling, not the pain, the recognition, because recognition is the beginning of release, and release is where the cycle starts to break. Quietly, firmly, for real. That is the shift. That is the return. And once you step into it, you do not need them to fall apart for your world to come back together.